Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review for September 14, 2025. Today, we're talking with Arthur Khachatryan, a member of the Armenian Parliament from the Hayastan Dashinq Armenia Alliance. Mr. Khachatryan, welcome to the Groong podcast. Great to have you.
Welcome, Mr. Khachatryan.
Well, thanks for having me with you.
So to begin today's discussion, Arthur, I want to talk about a somber occasion. And the reason why I think especially we should do it is because the government of Armenia is simply trying to mute anything related to our past heroism and our past sacrifices. And what I'm talking about specifically is the short but deadly one-day war on September 13, 2022. This year marks the third anniversary of that. And it was a brutal war when Azerbaijan suddenly attacked Armenia, including areas like Jermuk and also in the Sunik province. And in that brief span, 224 Armenian servicemen were killed. Many more were wounded. And the amount of casualties from this war was much higher than when you compare it with the 2016 four-day war, which lasted longer and was more intensive. Anyway, the harrowing videos showed Armenian soldiers being summarily tortured, mutilated, executed, female soldiers being sexually assaulted, or at least evidence of sexual assault for female soldiers. And apparently all of this is acceptable for the government of Armenia to essentially excuse away. In the case of a peace treaty, Armenia has already officially said that they would withdraw their criminal cases, including seeking justice for this incident. As a result of this aggression, over 200 square kilometers of Armenian territory, some in the areas of Jermuk, Vayosur province, others in the south of Armenia, have been occupied. That is an area roughly the size of Yerevan, and it remains under Azerbaijani occupation. No indication of Azerbaijani withdrawal. In fact, there's proof that Azerbaijanis are fortifying their positions, if not anything else. And today, the government of Armenia offers literal reflection of both the loss that we have and also the fact that Azerbaijanis are further entrenching themselves. A normal patriotic leadership would be expected to be at Yerablur, honoring the fallen. Meanwhile, the Armenian government officials are sponsoring a Harut Pambukchan concert, all while continuing to talk about peace, how brilliant of a peace they have brought to us. So, Arthur, I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on this third anniversary of this aggression by Azerbaijan?
After the 44-day war, the government of Armenia and Pashinyan, they are trying to dehumanize or depersonalize the war. We know the names of people who died during the Shushi liberation, the names of the people who died during the 4-day war in April 2016, and during all major battles during the First Artsakh war. However, the names of the soldiers and civilians who were killed during the 44-day war have never been published. Similarly, the names of people, names of servicemen who were killed in Jermuk, the names of servicemen who were killed during another September war on September 19th of 2023, when Azerbaijan launched its final offensive against Republic of Artsakh. The government of Armenia has never publicized these names. So trying to dehumanize or depersonalize, which makes it easier to forget, to hide this war. So I'm not surprised that the government and Pashinyan themselves didn't pay any tribute, any respect to the killed soldiers. They didn't visit Yerablur. There was nothing significant on the public television and on the government-controlled media and Pashinyan-controlled media. And this is not surprising. This is completely in line with his policy. Remember, the last Wednesday at the National Assembly says the future, the bright future is already here. We live in peace. There's peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So if there is a peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia, then Pashinyan has to camouflage, has to hide, and has to make the people forget that at least 200 more than 200 square kilometers of Armenian soil, about 250 square kilometers of Armenian soil is currently under Azeri occupation. Azeri soldiers, occupants, are on the territory of Armenia. So everyone sound in mind will ask, how come there is peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but Azerbaijan doesn't agree to withdraw its forces from Armenian territory? And to camouflage, to hide this, they have Harut Pambukian singing in Drazdan. And this is Harut Pambukian, whose concert was boycotted by Pashinyan supporters in 2018. And recently I saw a video on the social media, Harut Pambukian singing at Drazdan Stadium, about 60, 70,000 people, and he was singing Adanai Kotorat. And, I'm not surprised when Pashinyan tries to cleanse the memory of the people. I'm surprised, with the behavior of artists, singers who take money from Pashinyan and to help them become their tool in this painful and disgraceful act. So this said, this is what Pashinyan does. This is what the country is. Country looks like. This is what the country's official policy is under Pashinyan. And remember his statement today, if you are building a new house, you cannot have a picture that irritates, you cannot do something that irritates your neighbor. Talking about withdrawing the picture of Mount Ararat from the stamps, from the border crossing stamp. To start with, we are not building the country. The country has gained its independence for 35 years already. It was a pretty respectful country, respected by the neighbors, respected by the international community. That was protecting its borders, that was guaranteeing the safety and security of people of Artsakh. If this continues, one day Azeris will be irritated when we are speaking Armenian, or if we are like making prayers in Armenian, we are calling our children Armenian names, and call this country Armenia and not West Azerbaijan.
Right.
Well, this is what happens when you keep a defeated leader in place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Arthur, while the memory of the September 13 war was being muted in Yerevan, as we talked about, Turkish and Armenian envoys Serdar Kiliç and Rubinyan met at the Margara crossing on the border and later in Yerevan, pledging to expedite projects tied to normalization process. At the same time, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan reiterated a couple of days ago Turkey's long-standing position that Ankara's normalization with Armenia remains conditional on Ilham Aliyev signing a so-called peace treaty, which he was confident was going to be signed, he said, I think in the first half of 2026. Yet, as we know, Aliyev has only recently still openly declared that he will not sign the deal until Armenia changes its constitution to his own terms, his own conditions. And this process, we've talked about this process before. It's probably going to take 1 or 2 years. So in this context, what expediting are we talking about? What's expected from this visit of Kilic? Is this a peace propaganda for the Pashinyan regime, or is there something more than we know about this?
No, absolutely. This is just peace propaganda for Pashinyan regime. Right after Pashinyan's visit to Istanbul and his meeting with Erdogan, followed by his meeting in Abu Dhabi with Aliyev, Turkish and especially Azeri press were sending signals that Pashinyan is the best candidate they can think of for the Armenian elections. And they were also threatening the Armenian opposition that they will not tolerate the rise of a new revanchist, and they call everyone revanchist to speak.
If you seek justice, you're a revanchist.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So
all three of us
see that
here,
Azerbaijan, and they basically do not hide that, and quoting directly either Caliber.az or Azertaj.az. So one is closely affiliated with the Ministry of Defense of Azerbaijan, the other with Aliyev. saying that meeting in Abu Dhabi was political dividend generously granted by Aliyev to Pashinyan on the verge of elections. So I won't be surprised that right before the elections, we will see more sweet words from Azerbaijan and Turkey about Pashinyan and more threats against the opposition and threatening the Armenian public that they will face a war, basically face another offensive from Azerbaijan if the regime in Armenia changes. So talking about the answer from your question about Kiliç, I don't know what has been discussed. I know that about 3 years ago, Kiliç promised Rubinyan, the Armenian government, that they will open the Markara crossing for diplomatic passport holders and for third country nationals.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question is, why third country nationals? If like, I don't know, the Sinhalese, I mean, Sri Lankans, can cross the border between Armenia and Turkey at the Markara crossing, while Armenians cannot cross or Turks cannot cross. Okay, well, Sinhalese and Senegalese can cross. Where is the logic why Armenians can't do that?
You are absolutely reading my mind. Who are these citizens of third parties waiting to cross the Armenian-Turkish border?
Yeah. I haven't seen any line, okay, on the side of the border.
Is Azerbaijan considered a third party in this context?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not sure. I don't think that Azeris have queued to enter Armenia from Markara.
Arthur, one more thing, because I believe that I think it was Pashinyan who said just last week that citizens of no countries will be discriminated against at Armenian borders. But it doesn't seem like that includes Armenians, because in this deal, Armenian citizens are being discriminated against right now.
Basically, now there are two questions on my notebook. First of all, this is interesting. Right after this meeting, right after signing the ceremony, I think about 2 weeks after that, Ararat Mirzoyan himself confessed that according to his logic, the border between Armenia and Turkey will be opened after the peace treaty is signed. So this means that Mirzoyan himself confessed that there is a precondition by Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
For 5 years, he and his boss and his party were cheating that there are no preconditions between, in Armenia-Turkish reconciliation process. So now he confesses that there is a precondition, and now they keep repeating that. Your second question, there are many questions and no answers about this, the regime on this TRIPP. You remember that during the after the signing ceremony, during this briefing, President Trump himself said that United States will get exclusive rights for up to 99 years to develop this corridor, the TRIPP. And then he said it can be extended in 99 years, it can be extended for another 99 years, and said to Pashinyan, you promised twice, you promised, and Pashinyan didn't object to that. Now, what regime will prevail on the corridor? And by the way, Trump several times said the word corridor, corridor, and Pashinyan didn't react to that. During the Q&A session with the government, we try to understand that. Pashinyan says there won't be contact between Armenians and Azeris, and machines will replace the people. And he brought the example of crossing the border between the Eurasian Economic Union countries, and also when you cross the United Arab Emirates. I crossed the border between Arab border, UAE border. There was a pretty massive but very kind-looking border guard, and the problems when you try to cross the Russian border. So examples were completely wrong. And let me remind you that Aliyev himself continuously has said there shall be no encounter between Azeris and Armenian officials. Now Pashinyan basically says he has agreed with Aliyev's demands. They will not interact with the Azeris will not interact with Armenian officials, border guards or customs officials. They will interact with the machines.
We're going to talk a little bit more about the Trump route in a moment, but let me just keep on this normalization track for just a second, because it
Mhm.
seems like things are being hinged, without even saying it, they're being hinged on the change of constitution in Armenia. Do you
Oh
expect the
yeah.
constitution to be changed in early 2026 or during the elections of 2026? Because that's what Hakan Fidan was, I mean, kind of implying. There was an implicit understanding that if it's going to happen in 2026, then other things that are prerequisites will be happening in
Asbed,
2026.
but before we even get there, I mean, is it even feasible to consider, having a referendum on the Constitution and having it pass?
Well, Fidan, I think yesterday or a day before, said that he expects the new constitution will be adopted during the second part of the of 2026 after the elections. That's, I think, the Turkey's assessment. I think Pashinyan will do everything to have it passed or approved before the elections because Pashinyan has to put something on the barrel, on the table, saying that I promised you I will bring peace. The initialing of the peace treaty is not peace yet. Is not peace yet. He needs something more solid. And Azerbaijan says you need to change your constitution before we sign the peace treaty. So Pashinyan will go to any concession. Will do anything to have it changed. I don't know how he's gonna do that because the level of the support he enjoys was 17 point something, and the polls were conducted few days after the initialing of this document of this so-called peace treaty and signing of the declaration between himself and Aliyev that the government tries to present as a trilateral declaration, which is an absolute bluff. Uh, and compared to the previous poll, his popularity has gone up by 3 percentage points only. So he needs something more serious to go to the elections. He understands now. He sees that the popularity of consolidated opposition is larger than his and his satellites' popularity.
Yeah, there's a lot to be settled here. You
Mhm.
know, there are a couple of nuances which I'm not going to have time to discuss because when I was reading the news last week, there was an article which mentioned that Serbuy Galyan had found language between the Armenian constitution and the Azerbaijani constitution that were very similar as far as territorial discussions, and therefore, I think she was arguing that this either represents no territorial claims or it represents territorial claims on the part of both countries. But let's not go there. Arthur, Rubinyan and Kilic discussed, quote, strengthening cooperation in the field of culture and academia, particularly by creating scholarship opportunities for higher education students. That's one. And joint renovation of the historical Ani and Silk Road Bridge with Kilic. Can you expand on these projects? What are we going to see?
Well, Rubinyan and few other of his fellows from his party, I think they have past trainings in Turkey. Obviously, he loved that, and he wants more Armenian to go there and to start thinking like he does. Thinking like he does. Uh, yeah, no one sound in mind will believe that Turks will come and will learn something in Armenia. But I think they can find, Rubinyan and his friends can find people who can be brainwashed by the Turks or who can go there and start preaching Armenian-Turkish reconciliation, which is unilateral concessions.
Mhm.
And by the way, this government already has changed the text of the textbooks of the textbook of the Armenian nation's history, basically trying to brainwash the kids about this dirty ideology of New Armenia. You know, they don't have the picture of Mesop Mashtots in the textbooks. Instead, they basically blame Samvel Shahramanian for ethnic cleansing in Artsakh.
Right.
So they already do that. Now they want to get more training, more consulting from Turkey how to continue this shameful behavior. And talking about cultural exchange, I think they just try to play on the emotions of the people, saying that, okay, forget about that, forget about West Armenia, forget about Artsakh. Instead, you will have this Ani Bridge renovated. I think they were talking about the renovation of Ani Bridge in Soviet Union, but nothing has happened so far.
There was another point that they discussed about the Kars-Gyumri railway, and I guess that's going to be a panacea. Let me ask you just one question. Is this railway going to make Armenians rich?
No, not at all, no. Since 2021, when Pashinyan first spoke about huge Armenian transit potential, I'm trying to get the government's assessment of the economic potential of, first about this economic impact of this trade route, of these or their assessment of this transit potential, and I've been receiving one sentence saying that they are still in the process of conducting a feasibility study. So no feasibility study, no assessment has ever been published, but they keep saying that opening up of the road will make Armenia rich. Well, of course, it's much better when you live with open roads rather than with closed roads. But having the roads open will bring also the opening up of the economies. And imagine what's going to happen if small Armenian economy interacts with huge Turkish economy. Imagine about the social impact, the inflow of Turkish tomato into Armenia, inflow of Turkish textile into Armenia.
Well, what would you say what would you say to the argument that liberalization would, promote competition? So if Armenian tomatoes are cost more, then we should eat Turkish tomatoes.
Okay, then what the farmers shall eat.
Yeah, but I mean, more importantly, do you think that the Turkish government is subsidizing Turkish agriculture to the point that Armenia can't, for instance?
Well, it doesn't matter what do I think. There is statistics from OECD, and Turkey is one of the, and in the OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, Turkey is one of the countries who subsidizes its agriculture heavily.
Yeah.
I think they are subsidizing 28%, while Armenia pays pennies to Armenian farmers, and they keep cutting back on assistance to the agriculture. So the cheap Turkish tomatoes will enter Armenia. They will force Armenian farmers out of the market. They will force Armenian farmers to sell their land because they cannot find market, and they have to feed their families. The Turks will buy Armenian land, maybe not directly, but through their agents in Armenia.
Yeah.
And imagine what's going to happen next. And then about the Turkish textile, and the Armenian textile companies will go out of the business in a short term. Yeah, the consumers will benefit. But when the Armenian farmers are out of the market and Turks control the Armenian agricultural lands, imagine what's going to happen with the prices. Sorry, let me give you a very quick remark. Okay, you remember that in 2021, Armenia has imposed embargo against Turkish goods, complete embargo. And that sent an inquiry to the Ministry of Economy asking about the economic impact of this embargo. And they sent a beautiful letter proving statistically how Armenia benefited from embargo. Like local production was picking up, import substitution by local manufacturers or from providers from Italy, Iran, Belarus. Okay, so back to your question, I haven't seen, and no one has ever seen, any economically sound document proving that opening up of the road between Nakhichevan and Azerbaijan will make Armenia rich. Other than that, there is no discussion, there is no agreement that Turkey will open up its border or Azerbaijan will allow Armenian cars and Armenian cargo to cross through Azeri territory. In the text of this of Pashinyan-Aliyev joint declaration witnessed by Trump, there is clear passage saying that Azerbaijan gets an unhindered access. Armenia gets mutual benefit. What is mutual benefit? No one knows.
Yeah.
But if it is a corridor for Armenians, it shall be explicitly stated that Armenians will get a corridor through Nakhichevan or through Azerbaijan to Russia or to Caspian Sea.
So Arthur, let's talk a little bit more about TRIPP, which we started earlier. So a U.S. State Department delegation led by Brendan Hanrahan, who is a senior official in the Bureau of European and Eurasian Affairs, visited Yerevan last week to announce a 145 million first tranche of American funding for the TRIPP, also called the Trump route, or what the Turks refer to as the Zangezur corridor.
Or the Armenians refer to it as the crossroads of peace.
Yes, a crossroads of capitulation, if you ask me. But what's interesting is that last week we were talking about how Russian Deputy Prime Minister Overchuk was saying that there is not enough funding and it's unclear how this project will be funded given the profitability constraints. Well, it seems like the U.S. State Department is stepping up. At the August 8th ceremony in Washington, Trump described this as a 99-year project, right? And the U.S. ambassador to Turkey also said, Tom Barak also said that this was a 99-year project. And in fact, he referred to it as a lease. Now, Armenian officials, and it's important to highlight, Armenian officials have consistently denied that this trip is going to be a lease. And they have also denied that it would be 99 years. And when the Memorandum of Understanding was published, neither the words lease or the phrase 99 years appeared anywhere in the text. In fact, nothing close to that. Still, the size of this commitment for us raises questions. How could the U.S. commit 145 million to a project without understanding how it's going to recover its money? The opposition, such as your party, have demanded clarity from the government, Arthur, but so far, ordinary Armenian citizens remain in the dark. So this is your opportunity to tell us what's really going on. How will this Trump route operate, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, $175 million to
45.
develop, or well, I think it doesn't matter, 145 or
Yeah, it doesn't
75,
matter how
doesn't
much
matter.
it is.
Okay, to build the road that links Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan. No single word about a penny to be paid to build, reconstruct, renew, renovate a road that will be available to Armenians to cross to break the blockade imposed against Armenia for 35 years already. Okay, Americans can pay $5 billion to build this road 43 kilometers. So what? What I'm interested in is not connection between Nakhichevan and Azerbaijan. I, as an Armenian citizen, I'm interested in a road that will connect Armenia to outer world through Turkey or through Azerbaijan. More importantly, through Azerbaijan, because Turkey is not in this game. Okay, it's not in this game. This means Americans or anyone else has to contribute money to help Armenians to get either through Nakhichevan, connecting Armenia's south to central Armenia, but most importantly, that will connect Armenia to outer world through Azerbaijan. Either, I mentioned about that briefly, okay, through Kazakh to Russia or through Azerbaijan towards Caspian Sea and Far East.
Yeah, I mean,
So
Ijevan
the money
Kazakh on the Azerbaijani side, Ijevan on the Armenian
Yerevan,
side.
Kazakh, yeah, Yerevan, Kazakh, Yevlakh, Ganzak, and so on. So what is more relevant is that money spent in Armenia that will be used by Azeris? Who cares? And at the parliament, we try to understand what regime will work there. Will Armenians be allowed to use this road, or it is dedicated to Azeris only? If Armenians are going to use two, how these two, the Armenian and the Azeris passengers will interact? And by the way, what does unhindered mean?
Yeah, that was going to be our question.
I, as an Armenian, and Armenia as a member of Eurasian Economic Union, I cannot enter Russia unimpeded, or Belarus or Kazakhstan. So this is the issue. Second, about the duration of this project. Trump spoke about special exclusive rights, development rights, for 99 years that can be extended for another 99 years. What has been published, what has been shown to the public, is a 3-year project. And, by the way, a couple of weeks ago, Aliyev said, if it were up to us, we would build the road, is 43 kilometers, in 1 year. Since Armenians do not have that experience, they don't have the capacity, it will take them up to for 3 years. So maybe a road will be constructed, a railway will be constructed in 3 years. What's going to happen next? Because if the United States invests money, they have to bring this money back. If it's a business project, okay, they will require, not concessions, they will require special rights to operate the road. Will Armenia have a word in that? I don't know.
I find it kind of crazy to sign a 99-year or 198-year agreement for a country that's 35 years old, doesn't have the maturity to control its own territories.
Interestingly, what Pashinyan said, this is fantastic. He said, in American legal language, the word lease is equivalent to development rights in Armenia. I said, come on, what are you talking about? The Brits have leased Hong Kong from China for 99 years. Leasing and development rights are completely
different. Arthur, about unhindered communications, which you discussed, does it include illegal communications as well?
Illegal?
Well,
of course. What if
Asbed,
Azerbaijan starts
if you do not
drug trafficking
anything.
And I mean, this is a problem, right? If they're drug running through it, if they're running weapons and what have you, does Armenia say, well, it's unhindered, it's not our problem?
If it's unhindered, this means everything is illegal. Okay, if I cannot check the identity of a passenger, if I cannot check the cargo, how can I say it's legal or illegal?
So let me give you also an example, because Azerbaijan said that they're not going to see any Armenian when going through Armenia. And Pashinyan brought up the example of, electronic means of checking verification. But I, as a US citizen, I did this very recently, like 2 weeks ago. I arrived in the United States. It was a big surprise because there was everything was almost done electronic, except when I went to exit the security checkpoint, there were two very armed and very big security guards whose faces I had to see, and I'm pretty sure that I would not be allowed to do that to pass through if there's something wrong. So I just don't understand how this is supposed to work when they're saying that they're not going to see any Armenian. What happens if someone gets sick on this corridor going through Armenia? What happens if someone is trafficking weapons or drugs? What if it gets escalated? Are we going to rely on U.S. Private military contractors to secure our border and secure our things passing through Armenia? How does that work?
This is a $145 million question, actually. This is what I talked about. Okay, how are they going to handle that? Even if you cross the border, there's this rapid scan, the scanner that you put your purse, and there is someone sitting physically in person from flesh and blood, sitting there and asking, what's that, what's that, what's that? Okay, imagine passenger train passes, 500 people in a train. What are they going to do? They're going to stop the train. Everyone gets out, pass through a corridor, pass through the robots, or what a drone is flying in the cars, in the carriages. How are they gonna do that technically? Okay, imagine a big cargo train. How are they gonna check what's in there? So this is why I say that very responsibly, that it's a corridor, extraterritorial corridor, that Azeris enter this corridor from Mary, and they get out on the western border of Syrian region, and the opposite way. Otherwise, you cannot, okay, you just cannot imagine how the robots are going to check people and cargo. During the Key West, Lachin corridor shall be under the same jurisdiction as Artsakh. Okay.
Yeah, this
So
was Key West
basic,
for our listeners. Key West was proposed peace treaty where there was some exchange of corridors and things like that. But this was in the 2000s or late
2001. Basically,
1990s.
this
Yeah.
is exchange of Artsakh with a corridor and a sovereign passage through Armenia.
The so-called global plan.
Well, I
Yeah.
wouldn't call it global plan because global plan was territorial swap. The final version of the document that was put on Key West in Florida on the 5th of April was Azerbaijan passes a sovereignty over Nagorno-Karabakh to Armenia. In exchange, Armenia giving an unimpeded sovereign passage to Azeris to link Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan. Okay, the jurisdiction of Lachin corridor was the same as jurisdiction of Artsakh. Okay, so there was no issue of checking the identity. Here is another completely different thing. Okay, or the second thing, are Armenians allowed to use that road? Okay, so imagine I get to that road and I want to cross the border to go into Nakhichevan. So Azeris will not be checked. Will Armenians be checked?
And who would be checking?
Will Japanese be checked? If Japanese are checked when they enter Armenia through Zvartnots airport or Georgian border, why shall not they be checked when they get into Armenia from Azerbaijan?
Arthur, one last question on this topic. The Pashinyan team presents this as a great opportunity for Armenia to make money. We know that, yearly, for instance, the government of Panama receives billions of dollars for the Panama Canal. So is this a Panama Canal for the Caucasus? Will Armenians become rich from this corridor?
Well, the details of Panama Canal deal are clear. The details of this corridor are not clear at all. Back in 2001, 24 years ago, more than 24, that was, I think, in April or May 2001, Pashinyan was suggesting giving corridor to Turks and Azerbaijan in exchange of money. So if this is the case, with Armenia gets, I don't know, just the that's a fees. Will it make Armenians rich? I don't think so, because Turkey and Azerbaijan are, you have to cross the Panama Canal, okay, to get from Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. Turks and Azeris have many ways to get connected to each other. This one will be unhindered, but nevertheless, it's not the only canal. It's not the only road.
But when you look at it, I think there are estimates that, for instance, we can look at the analogy between in Georgia, right? There is this Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway, and any estimate, I've tried hard to find estimates. There are no official
it's
estimates.
Underutilized.
Yeah,
It's
first of all, it's
underutilized,
and second of all,
yeah.
like the revenue to Georgia has been like on the order of hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars. That's what I was trying to get at.
True. That's true. First of all, Georgians had to borrow extensively to build their part of the road, and the Armenians have to do the same. And an investor comes in and pays, the investor shall get its money first. So the investors will skim the milk. What's there for Armenia? I don't know. Panama makes billions of dollars today, but during the first years they were not making anything. The consortium who built and operates the canal was getting the money. That's it. So I really don't think it will make Armenians rich. Like if the US, okay, if they give this $145 million, they have to get it back. Okay, the American citizens will say, You give American taxpayers money to Armenia, what you get instead, what you get in return.
Arthur, for the sake of time, I need to move. The Defense Ministry has drafted a bill to reduce mandatory military service from 24 months to 18 months. Pashinyan has also announced that Armenia's defense budget will not be increased and, in fact, is set to decrease in 2026. He argued that the regional situation after August 8 allows for lower military spending, and he has already started redirecting funds towards refinancing parts of the national debt. What kind of peace is expected in the region, or is he selling in the region, when every one of Armenia's neighbors is significantly increasing their military budget? Azerbaijan, Georgia, Iran, Russia, and Turkey are all expanding their military spending in 2026.
Well, when Germany was defeated and when Japan was defeated, there were limitations on their armed forces. Even the Japanese constitution was changed not to allow Japanese to use their military forces outside of Japanese territory. So this is a normal procedure when you sign a capitulation. However, today in Armenia, Pashinyan denies that he has signed a capitulation, and he says what happened was a victory for Armenia, and Armenia became an independent state. Okay? But Azerbaijan, Aliyev, many times has said they will not allow Armenia to restore its military potential. So this is another precondition.
And it's not written down, because I don't believe that it's part of the agreement or whatever they want to sign.
Well,
this is all
that's
behind
not
the
part of
scenes.
agreement. That's all behind the scenes. Okay, that's all behind the scenes. Remember, after this 44-day war, Armenia withdrew its forces for 60 kilometers. They were asking, though the first point on this trilateral declaration says the troops stop where they are as of 00 midnight of 10th of November. And Pashinyan says this was an oral agreement. Okay, and I think it's an oral agreement. Or documents will be declassified like X years
50
from
years
today.
from now.
50, 50. We will not, I will not survive. Anyway, but, okay, talking about this. So, reducing the military expenses is directly forced by Azerbaijan. Okay, Azerbaijan itself says that they're going to spend billions to increase their military potential, but they don't allow Armenians to do that. This is one thing. The second, this is interesting. The police forces were allowed to be used in the defense of the Armenian frontiers. Now they changed the law. The new National Guard is not allowed to serve on the borders. Instead, they serve in Yerevan downtown, frightening the citizens and trying to frighten the opposition. And I don't think so. I can't understand how the government is going to protect the borders. Only, relying on the Azeri and Turkish mercy. This means they agreed to become Azerbaijan's marionette state. If they do what Azerbaijan orders them to do peacefully without resistance, of course, there is no need to defend your borders because you do what you are ordered to do. But if you do what you are ordered to do, means that you are a marionette state of Turkey and Azerbaijan.
Arthur, as I mentioned, Pashinyan has started redirecting defense funds to refinancing some of the national debt. Has Armenia's national debt become a national security problem at this point? Because, first of all, over the past year, it has expanded by over $1.2 billion. And some analysts, some economists still think that it remains at acceptable levels as a percentage of Armenia's GDP. But of course, it's a GDP number that includes hyperinflated re-export figures from the height of the Ukraine war. And we've already seen in 2025, these re-exports tank. They're at less than half and they're going down even further. So probably next year's GDP is going to be a lot smaller. And so the debt to GDPs will suddenly skyrocket.
The growth rate of Armenia's economy has slowed down impressively, substantially. You were right. The re-export to and re-import from Russia was the major force behind the Armenia's impressive economic performance. However, as of first half of this year, the imports have reduced by more than 30%, and the exports have reduced by more than 50%, I think about 52%, about $4 billion. So the exports and imports have gone down. The local production doesn't grow. Armenia's economy relies, or the growth of Armenian economy is attributed to non-exportable segments of economy, construction, trade, operations with real property, and banking sector, which is linked to construction because 1/3 of portfolio are mortgages. So there are two economic risks. First is the debt, is the government debt, because the growth rate of the GDP gone down. Okay. Other than that, Armenia's GDP is denominated in drams. Okay, about 50% of Armenia's debt is in dollars. So imagine what's going to happen if Armenian dram depreciates. This means they have to keep Armenian dram expensive. But when they keep Armenian dram expensive, Armenian exports become expensive, and the demand for Armenian exports have gone down. So it's a vicious cycle that Pashinyan forced Armenia into for a very short-term economic growth. To stand and to tell 50,000 people trust Armenian government because 50,000 families have signed up for a mortgage and have bought their apartments. Now, there are two minds under the Armenian economy and Armenian security, I mean, in economic terms. First is debt, government debt, and second is highly inflated, very risky bubble in the real estate market. Now, the prices of the real estate are going down and number of transactions are going down. So this means, again, okay, I'm afraid the risk of Armenia passing through what the US has passed through 2008 and 2009 are very serious. US had resources to overcome. Armenia doesn't have.
Yeah. I want to remind our listeners that Arthur Khachatryan is an economist by profession, so he's not blowing smoke when he's talking about these topics. Arthur, we know that you have limited time. Let's close on two questions. And
Yes.
I want to go back to the defense budget. Since June 2021, has Pashinyan actually spent the annual defense budget on defense?
Well, this is an issue I cannot speak about. I cannot speak about because if you want me to tell what's in the press, it's not interesting. But I cannot tell what is not in the press. What I know, because being a member of the parliament entitles me to know something that is not for public ears. But I don't think that the military power of Armenia has gone up. The government says they spend money. I don't know what is on the debtors, okay? How much they have transferred to India, for instance, how much they have received. All I know that Armenia's military power is not increasing. Armenia hasn't participated in one serious military exercise during the last 5 years. There were 3 Eagle partner military exercises with the US, with National Guard from Arkansas. But this is for peacekeeping operations. And one of the components, I'm not sure about this year, but the last year was on crowd control. You cannot have a strong army which doesn't participate in military exercises.
Yeah, the Kansas National Guard was training them. I think 1 year was on field hospitals and 1 year was crowd control. So it was actually more National Guard stuff, which would be applicable to the
Yeah, but
Armenian
this is not
police.
new. This is not new. Like the Kansas National Guard was cooperating with the Armenian Ministry of Emergencies.
20 years ago.
Yeah, if not 20, at least 15. Like when I was a governor in Shirak, there were exercises between Ministry of Emergency Situation and the National Guard.
In 2021, the estimate for the Armenian army was about 50,000 troops, and the police was 12,000 or so in the country.
Mm-hmm.
What are either your official or estimated numbers that you know of today?
I don't know the number. Well, I cannot speak about the I cannot speak about the numbers.
Is it classified
But
or
as I
do you not know?
Well, I'm not sure whether it's classified or not. Okay, so if I speak, it can happen that it's classified. But again, let me repeat. Previously, the police forces were allowed to be involved in the defense of the borders, of the frontiers. Today, they changed the law, and the National Guard is not allowed to be engaged for the defense of the frontiers. So this means the potential number of servicemen who could be engaged has gone down. Second, okay, the police has several structural units.
Right.
Okay, like criminal police, community police. Previously, we had these policemen who were
the NSS. There's the investigative body. There's the red
no,
berets, the purple
investigative
berets,
body.
the
No.
blue
That's
berets.
separate.
I'm confused with all these
No.
subdivisions.
Oh, and
NSS is not a subdivision of the Ministry of Internal Affairs.
No. Yes, and the investigative committee is not subdivision. No. We had also the policemen who were basically working as security forces in the buildings, okay, providing internal security for government buildings and so on and so forth. And we had the National Guard or Vostikanakan Zorker police troops, and we also have riot police. What I see on the street, maybe the number of police itself is the same, but there is a change in the composition, okay? Obviously, more special forces, more riot police. And also, again, I'm repeating this for the 5th time, but it's very important. Change of the mission of the police troops. So Pashinyan uses police as a club in his hand to frighten the people and to threat the opposition.
Did these special troops that we're talking about, special forces, come from army troops, or are they newly trained, completely new workers in the workforce?
I don't know. Maybe retired soldiers, maybe. I'm not sure. But they are not 18, 20 years, obviously. Some of the police troops are just young people. Are they 21 or 19? I don't know. And usually they are not talkative. But we can see red berets, we can see black berets, we can see the camouflaged police troops. We can see the fat policemen on the streets. Absolutely worthless.
Okay, let's end our topics here. I'd like to ask each of you if you have a thought you would like to share with our listeners. Let's start with you, Hovik, this time.
So let me paint the scene. After the complete ethnic cleansing of Artsakh, there are about 15 to 20 Armenians left in Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, and mostly in Stepanakert. Most of these are elderly, mentally ill people who don't have a family and don't have, and I assume that's it, basically. People who couldn't easily move to Armenia and they decided to stay. So Azerbaijan published stories about this terrorist, so-called terrorist, an Armenian by the name of Karen Avanesyan or Avanesyan.
Avanesyan.
Yeah, Avanesyan And he's known, and there's been video reports about him. He's known to feed stray cats in Stepanakert, and he has had mental issues in the past. He has had schizophrenia, so I'm pretty sure he didn't go to the army. And Azerbaijan would like us to believe that this person got grenades hidden somehow in the forest. He got guns and shot at Azerbaijanis, and as a result, he was shot. And Azerbaijan is presenting this internally as a anti-terrorist event. But I just want to say, Lindsay Snell has published video interviews of him, and I think that this is just another instance of Azerbaijan basically keeping anti-Armenian hatred alive. And it's just hard to imagine the situation of all these like handful of Armenians left in Artsakh, and the amount of scrutiny, the amount of oppression, even those who decide to cooperate and remain behind are going through right now.
And if you ask questions as to how he died, why he was killed, you'll be a revanchist.
Yeah, he was not killed. He was shot, but as far as I know, he was not
wounded,
killed.
yeah.
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 Hovik, can we put the links in the show notes to
Of course,
Lindsay
yeah.
Snell's material?
Yeah.
Well, basically, when Artsakh spoke about their right of return, Azeri staged this show to prove that there's a threat from Artsakhs, from Armenians, and they will not allow Armenians to return home. So this is the whole issue. Otherwise, you cannot believe that someone is walking freely in the streets of Stepanakert. He takes his Kalashnikov gun, he takes, hand grenades, throws them at the police, and so it's a complete, excuse my French, it's a bull excrement. I want to talk about the internal Armenian policy. Pashinyan being a defeatist, okay, towards Azerbaijan, who is ready to go to any type of unilateral concession to Azerbaijan, has become a real tyranny in Armenia. His recent statement, "I'm the government," shows that this person has maniacal power grip, and we are seeing a rise of an Armenian tyrant. And we have a very critical situation in Armenia, threat from Azerbaijan and having a despot, a tyrant inside Armenia. And Pashinyan is a threat to the country because of his paranoical power grip and because of his willingness to go to any concession to have, to stay in power. So this is why he shall be sent home. I'm talking about all possible legal means.
Thank you, Arthur, for your thoughts. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your
Pleasure
time.
is all mine.
Thank
We'll
you,
talk
Mr.
to you
Khachatryan.
soon.
Always pleasure. Bye.
Okay, Asbed. Well, it's time to talk about things that are either too weird or too corrupt to leave out of the show. So remember how last week we joked about the foreign minister, Ararat Mirzoyan. Soon he might need to change his first name to Aragats because Turkey is very sensitive to anything related to Ararat. The joke is on us. Yes, this government has decided that on September 11 to amend a previous decision from 2011 on border stamps. Essentially, it's a decision that defines on how border stamps will look. And conveniently, this was not, there was no explanation given on why this decision was being made. So people had to actually pull out the previous decision and compare it. And interestingly, the main thing missing from this version is Mount Ararat. So we are one step closer to fulfilling Turkish demands, and people are saying this is a minor thing, but it's not going to end with border stamps. Obviously, it's going to include the coat of arms, and it's going to include anything official in the government of Armenia that has the word Ararat or the imagery of Ararat on it. The only question to ask is which one will be next? Maybe they will even ban the name Ararat in reality from being given to children, so we'll see.
Well, listen, if I were to ever become president of Armenia, that's coming right back. Okay. All these.
Well, you're not the only one, Asbed. So let's just, I think about 85% of Armenians feel this way, but, we live in an occupational regime. I think it's important to state that.
Well, okay, from one joke to another, Hovik. Remember how we used to make fun of Lilit Magunts, Pashinyan's former English tutor turned Armenia's ambassador to the US? Be careful what you laugh at because the sequel is here. On September 1, Narek Mugurtchian became the new ambassador to Washington, arguably the most prestigious diplomatic post one can get. And by September 4, his brother Mugurdic Mugurtchian was already in handcuffs, arrested for drug trafficking and illegal arms possession. Except when they searched him, nothing turned up. A passenger conveniently bolted and is now wanted. They can't find the guy. Presumably, he also carried off some kind of an incriminating stash. They found little parts here and there, but there's no sign of him yet, and there's no sign of the stash. But it gets better. A video then surfaced showing Mugurtchian swinging at the cops and resisting arrest. And was that on the charge sheet?
Let me guess, no.
Not really. In the end, he walked away with house arrest for weapons possessions. What can you contrast that with for the opposition people who get arrested? Because if you're an opposition member and you dare say that you're going to defend the church in your own way, you get solitary confinement in the KGB cells. But if you're tied to the ruling circle and get nabbed for weapons and maybe drugs, and even throw a few punches at the police, don't sweat it. Just make sure you never use the words "in our own way."
Yeah. I have to say, I used to think that being a foreign diplomat in Armenia and having to write one of those, those regular cables back home on what's happening in Armenia was probably the most boring job in the world. We know some of our listeners probably fit in that category, but hey, at least writing about this, I'm sure you didn't need any extra coffee to get you going through your day. So, okay, so I want to talk about, we didn't talk about this last week. So September 2 was the Day of Independence for the Republic of Artsakh, or the Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh. And on this anniversary, a monument was opened at Yerablur, which is the military cemetery in Armenia, a monument dedicated to Artsakh. Now, according to Arthur Khachatryan, who was the benefactor, he's an opposition member, but also he bankrolled this effort. The government tried everything they could to prevent this monument from being erected. And then when they couldn't prevent Arthur Khachatryan from erecting this monument, they basically just turned off the power during the ceremony of the unveiling of the monument.
Ah, that's a really good use for having control of the electric network of Armenia.
Yes, exactly, right.
So by extension, Hovig, at this point, since Pashinyan controls the ENA, which he stole from Samvel Garabedian, if you happen to be an opposition member, your lights could be turned off.
Literally, yes.
Yeah, literally,
And
absolutely.
figuratively.
Good luck with your anything.
Yeah. Another news, Yerevan to Kapan flights. Remember how this regime said that they finally restored air communication between the capital and Kapan.
Yeah, even Pashinyan flew to Kapan one time, I think.
Yeah, and that one time that he flew, his plane or the airport was shot at. But anyway, so ever since they started this Nov airline that so far in 2025 has carried just about 2,000 passengers. And it was a brand new airplane. Well, now they're pausing flights from Yerevan to Kapan. In fact, this flight was the only internal Armenian flight. There's no flight between Yerevan and Gyumri for whatever reason. So this was the only flight in Armenia, and it's very difficult to get to Kapan. And now they're pausing the flight, and the official reasoning is that the airplane, this brand new airplane that they purchased probably a year ago or even less, needs to undergo repairs. And what's also interesting is that just a month ago they were boasting about buying another airplane, but to be honest, with just 2,000 passengers, I don't know how many airplanes can they buy to justify to make a profit.
Any kind of a way to measure what that means, whether 2,000 is too many or too little? I mean, we're talking about Yerevan to
I mean,
Kapan. Honestly,
I would
I
assume the
simply
ticket
do not know.
price, yeah, it's like $100. I mean, right? Probably, or I mean, I don't think normal Armenians would pay more than that for an internal Armenian flight. So 2,000 times 100, that's like $200,000 just revenue this year. So obviously this airline was going to rely on, I don't know how many years it would have to fly to make a profit, and I don't, that's why I'm saying, like, I don't know if they can even get a second airplane.
How many, so since you have done that road, how long does it take to drive from Yerevan to Kapan? And I assume it's probably going to take half an hour to fly there.
I mean, if you're a Hayastan driver, probably like you will get there in 4 hours if you get there, if you don't crash. And if you drive with, like, normal, like, if you're used to foreign roads and like me, and if you drive there, probably take you 5 to 6 hours, with some stops on the way. But what's interesting is also this, we mentioned that this airport, one of the questions that I want to ask is, why are so few people, given such a arduous and torturing road, why aren't more people paying for the flight? Like, for instance, let me say for myself, I would not feel safe, for instance, landing in an airport that is 50 meters away from an Azerbaijani post. And I want to take this time to remind our listeners how we got here, because in 2020, in the end of on November 9, even on November 9, when they signed the ceasefire, Azerbaijani troops were tens of kilometers away from the Kapan airport. But based on so-called verbal agreements that Pashinyan has conceded he participated in, they allowed Azerbaijanis to move all the way to the former Soviet borders, and sometimes even inside Soviet borders. And essentially now we have Azerbaijani soldiers perched 50 meters above the airport at a, and they have a higher vantage point, so they can target anything moving in Kapan, essentially.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I don't know. I don't know if I would take a flight to a place like that. I mean, it's so unpredictable.
Yeah. Maybe that's the reason they had 2,000 passengers this year so far.
Do you think they would have more, honestly?
I think that the number of passengers that drive to Kapan is much more. So yes, and yeah, if I got a taxi, I would have to pay probably 20,000 drams,
Okay.
for the taxi to drive me there.
For a one-way trip.
For a one-way trip. So I would assume that if this was much shorter flight, much more convenient and much more secure, at least the tourist traffic would be tremendous there. There's a lot of touristic sites. The only reason why there aren't so many tourists in Kapan is because it takes so long to get there. So if you're going to Armenia for 2-3 days, sometimes it doesn't make sense to go to Kapan, because you can easily spend 2-3 days in Sunik.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Well, that's
that was the
interesting,
whole,
because on a monthly
yeah.
basis, we hear that there are tourists visiting Armenia to the tune of, let's say, a couple of 100,000 people. So
Yeah.
all year, there's been only 2,000 trips. That's not a lot. Well, that was our weekend review, recorded on September 15, 2025. We've been talking with Mr. Arthur Khachatryan, who is an MP from the Hayastan Dashinq, the Armenia Alliance. He's also a member of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, the ARF Dashinq. In the past, he has held government posts such as Deputy Minister of Territorial Administration and Development, Governor Shirag, and Minister of Agriculture.
Folks, let us know how we're doing in the comments. And if you think we're doing especially good, then let us know also financially if you can. That's podcasts.groong.org/donate. One last request: if you want to contribute sweat equity instead of your own finance, you can open up Apple Podcasts. You can also do that on your MacBook, not just your phone. And make sure you subscribe to us and rate us on that platform, because we are being seriously hidden from the view on that platform specifically.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Asbed Bedrossian in Los Angeles.
And I'm Hovik Manucharyan in Los Angeles currently.
Talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.